Hey, my friends, it's Denise Walsh here, clinical psychologist turned dream life coach, and I'm here to share with you a super special story from a friend who got started with 90 Day U-Turn just a few months ago. And as I titled this, it's called Constant Chaos to Peaceful Mornings. And so you're going to get to hear her story in just a minute. But before I get started, I want to hear from you. How are you feeling these last few months of the year? Is this a joyful time of year for you? Is this an anxiety provoking time of year for you? Where are you at in your kind of life cycle right now? I'd love to hear in the chat. And I think I asked this question because so many times we are just going through the motions. So many times we are running on autopilot and we truly don't check in with ourselves to see how am I doing? What is going on? In fact, we believe that what we're experiencing is kind of quote normal. So we don't even know that it can be better sometimes. And so in our communities and in our programs, we often ask, how are you today? And then the next question, right, is where do you want to be in the next few months? And then a third question is, where would you have been at this time 3 months ago or at this time last year? Are you at the same place? Can you see how you've shifted and grown as you look back and reflect? And then where do you want to be at this time next year? We're always in this ebb and flow of growth, reflection, stabilization. And I think that it's important for all of us to ask ourselves these important questions. And this is something that our next guest has seen a lot of shifts over the last 3 months. And as she looks back over the last year and where she was at this time last year, where in comparison as to where she is now, I'm excited for you to see and experience some of the changes that she has implemented in her life. Because here's the deal, you guys, we will operate on autopilot forever. Like, how many people do you know that live for 10 years, 20 years in a job they hate and they're stressed to the max and they're anxious or overwhelmed and all these things, and they don't even try to change it? And so I am always so stinking proud of those who say yes, who say, you know what, I'm at my rock bottom, or like, I don't want to be here anymore and it's time to make a change. So big dream life welcome to Tami Trisket. Yay! The crowd goes wild. Well, thank you so much for being here, Tami. It's been amazing to work with you over the last few months. And so I'd love to get a sense of what life was like before you got started. And I know somebody referred you to 90 Day U-Turn, but they must have thought of you for a reason. So tell me a little bit about what life was like 4 months ago.
Well, 4 months ago, life was pretty chaotic. I have a 10-year-old autistic son who, if anyone knows anything about autism, one of the biggest things is schedule and consistency. And our life was nothing of the sorts. Everything was always kind of all over the place. We did not have a good, structured schedule. And working in a hair salon and being kind of all over the place with a schedule there. So we were really struggling 4 months ago with just the chaos. We were, mornings were most of the time constant arguments and yelling and not getting to school on time. And then me trying to get to the salon and then being there late at night and then I also suffer from fibromyalgia. And so that was taking a big toll and life was just a mess. Financially, schedule wise, health wise, all of it.
All of it. Yeah, that sounds hard. Like everything was just hard. Getting up and out of the mornings was hard. Being at work was hard. Like constant body stress. And I don't know if it was necessarily monkey mind, but even just like everything just feels tough. Is that right?
Oh yeah, it was constant. What you would call monkey mind, which I learned, and it was just every day you got up and it was like, what's going to be today? Like, what are we going to explode into today? Or what am I not going to get done that I feel like I should get done? And, it was just like my plate was so full with things I didn't even, it was like, why is my plate so full? Why am I doing all these things? Or why do I feel like I have to do all of these things?
So it seems like the analogy is your house is on fire, like
Yeah.
constant chaos, and your
Mhm.
body feels it, which means your fibromyalgia flares up, which doesn't help your mindset or anything, or being able to follow through. Everything suffers when you're in that state.
Right.
And so we would call that fight or flight mode, right? And it's when your blood goes from your brain to your limbs. It's not digesting food properly. You're not thinking clearly. You're just kind of in this frantic multitasking mode, but not really getting anything done. And so what caused you to say, all right, this is it. I can't do this anymore. I need to figure this out. What was the turning point to say yes to 90-day U-turn?
Well, I decided to join network marketing a year and a half. Well, it's been over a year and a half now. And I felt like I was spinning my wheels. I wanted to do so much more in my business. And I felt like I had the potential, but I couldn't figure out even where to put it. And I think a lot of the other stressors that caused me to look at 90-day U-turn was just the scheduling, but I just couldn't find time where I could sit down and actually like function in a business without feeling like, no, you have to do this and this and this, and you got to run here and you got to do this and you got to go there. I didn't even know how to begin to just, plus I had a lot of emotional things, I think, when my friend that recommended it, when we started talking, and my mom had said some terrible, just she was not supportive of my business at all. And so there were things that were just constantly popping up in my head. Like, I don't even know why I'm taking the time to do this because I'm not going to be successful at it anyway. It's just wasting more of my time. Like, it's taking up more of my time. I have to pay more money to do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm never going to make anything of it.
And so you were trying, right, to build your business. You were on the training calls. You were looking to take action. You wanted to do well, but you didn't, number one, have the brain space to sit down and be like, what should I do for my business today? It sounded like even when you sat down, you'd be like, squirrel, and go do something else, or like, I don't know what to do for my business, so I will just go do laundry, or like you didn't have the brain space or the physical time in your calendar to actually sit down and do it. And then often, even if you tried, you'd have those negative thoughts that would pop up because of outside influences. Why am I doing this? Why even try? It's not going to work anyway, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and when I would look for like the training, like they'd say, well, there's training. That's what you need to do. You need to look at it. And I would look at it and then it was overwhelming to me. And so then I would just.
Yeah. Okay. And so you can message as many people as you want, but if you're in that state, number one, you're not going to do as much like action as you need to for your business. But number two, people will be able to feel that transfer of energy. If you don't really believe or really have that like full blown emotional connection with what you're doing, people will be able to tell. And so I have often said, we need to be before we do. And so we're not here teaching you scripts or teaching you what to post or teaching you how to follow up with people. Here, we're helping you be. So then you can go to the training and have it not be so overwhelming. So you can follow through. So you can set boundaries and take, prioritize your time and your resources and things. So how do you feel like 90-day U-turn has shifted things for you over the past 3 months?
Well, a lot. It has helped me become more to see how much just a small shift in the morning of like, listen, morning's about getting ready for school. It's about getting your son prepared for his day. It's not about getting a post up or, trying to make a reel or a story or whatever. You've got to like stop and see, like, okay, you can't do a load of laundry while he's eating because he gets easily distracted and you have to keep him on task. And if you get distracted, then he gets distracted, and then the morning just goes woof, and it's gone, and he's late, and he has certain things he has to do before he goes to school. And it doesn't matter if an hour went by because we were doing something else, he still has to do those other things. And so through this process, I've been able to sit down and write a morning schedule and stick to it. And it has made mornings, they're much smoother. I have passed off, my husband says, what can I do? Like, there's got to be stuff, right? I never would ask him before. So he makes lunch at night now. So it's like, oh, well, I want to do my devotion in the morning. I get to do the things with him. And then when it's time for him to do, this thing in the morning, I do my devotions while he's doing that instead of packing lunch. And
Okay.
so just that shift, just keeping more of a black and white schedule down on a book, even though it felt like more work to me at first, because that now I write it, it's in my phone, I have it in a planner, and it's on a whiteboard in the kitchen. So everybody knows.
What I hear, okay, this is amazing, because what I hear you say is you didn't do more. In fact, you did less.
Yeah.
You took out the things that didn't need to be done right then. And you made the main thing the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
That hour before school is about you and your son getting ready and him getting off to school in a good attitude, a good mood, well fed, all the things. And because you know that posting or creating a reel or doing your devotional has a time slot somewhere else in the day, you don't need to worry about doing it all at once. And then the other thing I heard you say is you're asking for help, which again is a skill that we learn and we talk about and we hold each other accountable to, because it doesn't often come naturally to us women who think we can do all the things, right? And so that morning routine, how does that impact the rest of your day?
It has impacted the rest of our day, tremendously.
Yeah.
It's amazing just how different the rest of the day goes.
Yeah.
But it's also helped me see, like, if I don't get laundry done, then I don't get it done.
Right. And so the skills that you learned, it sounds like it can be really easy to kind of be in our lane, right? Like I said at the beginning, on autopilot, and then wanting things to be different. Like, why is this not working? I'll just try again. But we were able to create the space to say, what other options are there? What do you think about this? How about this? And so you took what we learned and applied it to stressful areas of your day and saw a huge shift. And that 1% change in the morning impacts the entire rest of your day and your son's day.
Yeah. And being able to take some of the stuff, just the little things like that, like it wasn't even just in the morning then. It was like, you're just one person. There's nobody out there that's expecting me to do all of this stuff except me. Not that but it's like taking the time to just get it done was something that I was always all over the place.
Yeah. I remember you and your husband got a big bathroom project finished, and you were so proud of all, like you put it on the calendar, you guys did it till completion, and then you got to go celebrate.
That was a turning point for us both in the night, even in the program with my husband, when I was like, the bathroom was like, can we redo it? He's like, yeah. So we did. And it was because I was like, I'm going to have an in-person event at our house, and this is going to get done beforehand. And it was just a tiny thing. But we also worked together and got the house like clean, and it felt so nice to just walk in, and the house was on the downstairs was clean. And I'm like, see, this is how we need to do it now. Let's just say, you know what, we're going to take this weekend and we're going to or these next few days, and we're going to do this. But both work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. How other ways did life shift for you over the last 3 months?
Um, I have our our finances are shifting, not to the point where like we're able to, eventually we want to like be financially free, but I have been able to really hone in on what we're doing and take more responsibility for just like the extra spending. We don't do as much of that, and we know we're on a good path to that. We're not really where we want to be, but we're on a good path. And I think I'm a little more confident in myself in doing the finances. I'm 3 months ago, I would have said it's just overwhelming. I don't want anything to do with it. And a lot of times that's what would happen. I wouldn't look at what we were doing because it was overwhelming, and I just was like, forget it. I just don't, I can't. I don't have time. I don't have, but I know that's not an option. And so it's like, if you don't put the important things at the top of the list and do those before anything else, you're going to always keep pushing them to the back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got brain space back.
Yeah.
You have the emotional space to look at these hard things that you've been pushing away for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And knowing I just need to admit, like, I just have to admit to myself, like, I just, say to my husband the other day, I said, we shouldn't be where we are. There's no excuse that we're living paycheck to paycheck. We can do this better. And it's not like we're, but it's like we can do this better.
Yeah. Well, and we talk about this in week 1, right? Like taking your head out of the sand.
Right.
And be like, what am I going? La 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 la. Everything's fine. Don't worry about. And so in week exactly like in week 1, we what do you call it? Like opening the hood, taking an inventory, taking a look. Let's get real and raw and honest with where we are now. So then we can set a realistic goal that's exciting. But then we learn the skills to keep our stress level down. So if we're always living at a 9, right, then everything is overwhelming. You're stuck in traffic and it's a catastrophe, or you're home late for
I
dinner.
can say that with the finances. That happens in this 3 months because like our lawnmower broke, and I'm like, oh, but it didn't stress me out. When we found one, a used one, I was like, okay, go buy it. It wasn't like we had all this extra money sitting around and our debt's all paid off. No, but we could buy a lawnmower without having to be like, what are we gonna do? Like, we're gonna have to get a loan to buy a lawnmower,
Yeah.
That was freeing in itself. And that's when I said to him, I said, it doesn't feel like we're doing that much financially, but we are.
Yeah.
Because a year ago, we would have never been able to just buy it.
Yeah. Good for you.
And so, like you said, with you get into a situation 3 months ago, that same situation would have put me over the edge.
Yeah. And so what do you feel it was about 90 Day U-Turn? Was it the community? Was it the weekly lessons? Was it the daily habits? What was it, all of it combined, like with your support coach? What pieces of it do you think were the breakthrough spaces for you?
I think that it was kind of in a whole, all of it. I loved the Tuesdays. It was such a commitment that even when it was like, oh, it's, I still, and I kind of miss it already. That hour, it's like, well, I got to go to class now, or I called it class to Tristan. But I think it was all of it in a whole, but I will tell you, I think week 8 and 9 were like the biggest release and turning point for me in a matter of where I had no idea how much some of the stuff that happened 15, almost 20 years ago was still like stuck. And that it was like, why does this still, the things that I wrote in the letter to this specific person was like, wow, that felt awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw a shift. So the first 6 weeks, for those listening, the first 6 weeks are all about kind of reigniting your spark, getting out of our head and into our heart space. Like, who am I? What do I really want? Right. And we saw you connect with a why that made you cry. Like, you got so excited about what you were working on. But 7, 8, and 9, I call the pivot points of the program, because this is when we clear the cobwebs. Because the reality is if it were easy, you would already be doing these things. So we clear the cobwebs and release those emotional strings that have been holding you back for decades. And we often don't even realize it because it's not about the same area of life. You know, you're focused on business, but this cobweb is from family or friendships or whatever from the past, right? But guess what? They still are impacting you. And so you freed up some of those emotional strings, and it sounds like you feel lighter.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I am still in shock. Like I didn't burn the letter because for me, it almost helps to just go back and read it again.
Yeah.
Like those things are something that I don't ever need to give that to that person or say them, but it felt so nice to just say it.
And if we don't, you guys, like that's what stuffing is, right? Just being like pretending like everything's fine and we just stuff. But yeah, we're freaking out. And that's when our house is on fire and it is impacting us. So opening it up, and oftentimes people don't want to open things up like that or open those emotional spaces up because they feel like they um can't put it back down, or like it's going to make them a mess. Like some people are worried about being triggered and then it's going to last for days and things. But because of the work that we've done, when we do get to that spot and when you do kind of open up the can of worms, you're able to handle it and you've got the support of the group. And so it truly is a healing experience in those weeks versus an anxiety provoking, chaotic one, would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, that one week, I can't remember if it was 7. I think it might have been 7 when I couldn't even get through a sentence without crying. So I was like, oh, I did not expect this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it still did so much for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got to week 8, it was something totally different that I felt the grief part I needed to do. And I was like, oh, I didn't expect that to be what came to my mind.
Right.
But because it was like, no, let's talk about what come to your mind first. And that did. And I'm like, wow. Like I never would have dreamed that that was still in a process I needed to grieve.
Yeah. I've had people say, like, I know I needed to heal, but I didn't know how. Like, how do you heal? Like, what's the roadmap for healing? And this kind of is a piece of it, right? Like this program is there's a lot of healing that happens. There's a lot of growth
Yeah.
that happens. There's a lot of clarity that happens. And so it can be a roadmap on that healing journey. And it's going to ultimately support you in your business because you will be somebody who shows up in your business differently.
Yeah. Well, and I think because in our world of today, I feel like we are taught when it's over, you need to get over it and you need to move on. And so if you feel like I felt like, I know for years after my divorce, it was like, well, I shouldn't be feeling that way anymore. So I need to just stuff that down and just move on because, you know, you shouldn't be grieving it or you shouldn't be still, you know, upset or something. And I think that that's something that this 90-day has done. You have it mapped out so well to like show you, no, there's a way you need to deal with things in your life.
Yeah, and it's possible and you can, and it matters. So how have your husband and son and family noticed a different Tami showing up?
I know my son, I believe, sees just a much calmer mom.
Mm-hmm.
a much more quickly to apologize if I lose my temper with him, or he tends to, bring it to my attention. But I think that that's most of it. I think he notices that I'm trying very hard to be very present when we are doing something. If we're reading, we're reading.
Mm-hmm.
If we're, setting up a train set, we're setting up a train set. We're not setting up a train set and checking my phone or checking this or looking at that. As far as my husband, I think he sees a calmer person, but I think that I have really tried to get more in tune with our relationship, so that we aren't just going through the motions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And doing those things together. Okay, so we have housework to do, so that's what we did together, but we did it together instead
Mm-hmm.
of you go work on this and I'll go work on that. And we don't have, and I think that I'm a much better listener now.
Mm-hmm.
I can actually get my mind, for the most part, I'm still working on it, but for the most part, I actually can focus on somebody's conversation.
Because you're not in multitasking monkey mind mode.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm much more available. I catch myself if I'm getting into that monkey mind. I catch myself hold on.
Yeah.
Back.
That's step one, noticing it. And oftentimes we live there and we don't even realize it, right? Because we just don't even know that there's another way. And so once you know what it feels like to live in the world of dreams, you then know what it feels like to step into that chaos. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm freaking out. It's all right. Come on back. And you learn the tools to bring yourself back.
Yeah. Which I have noticed bringing myself back numerous times. It's like, oh, okay. We gotta rewind here.
Good. You're like thought trap turnaround in action.
Yes.
So I love that, because it's not like, all right, 3 months and you've learned some things and now you're done. Like this is a shift that's going to keep you going in a new direction, and skills that you can continue to learn and utilize. And it's not like you forgot it all after 3 months, right? Like this is leveling you up to a new level and keeping you there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm going to do my best to always remember, wait, let's just go back.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah.
Because this is where you want to be, and this is where I want to grow from here.
I have clients who've done 90-day U-turn once a year. They're loving kick in the right direction.
Oh, I could totally see myself doing it again.
Yeah. And so they have the booklet that you can get on Amazon, right? And so they use, every time they do a new round, they write their answers with a new color pen. So then that way there's blue was the first time, and then pink, and then red, or whatever it is. So they can see how they've shifted, and it's all still in one spot, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who has been thinking about joining 90-day U-turn? They're maybe in a similar spot as you, where they're in that everything seems overwhelming. They're in a bit of chaos. Everything feels sticky or hard. But yet they're at a place where they're going, I don't want to stay that way anymore. What would you say to them?
I would say do it. Just do it. I had to just do it. I kept saying, oh, I can't afford it. Oh, I don't want to. Oh, this or that. And I did. I literally got to the point where I was like, I didn't even ask my husband. I signed up, and then I said, oh, so I signed up for this program that I really, really need. I think it's going to make a huge difference for me. And that's it. This is how much is going to come out of our checking account every month, and it will happen until it's paid off. And he's like, okay. And I am so thankful that I did. And if you're in a mindset where I was, it's really, really amazing program. I can't even say enough. Until I did the comparison from the beginning to the end, I didn't think I made that much progress. And then when I did it, I was like, oh my gosh, like we did make a lot of progress.
Yeah. Do you know your
Like, I think
numbers?
my points went up like 35 points or something. And
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
see, I did.
Yeah.
And just to be able to realize in myself, like, hey, you did work your business. Just because it didn't look traditional, you still did this, this, and this.
Hmm.
And those are the things I learned over the 3 months. Like, just you have to give yourself credit
Yeah.
where it's due.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a matter of you now when you do work your business, it's intentional and you're not coming from a chaotic or spastic kind of place. You're like, all right, this is what I'm going to do for the next half hour. This is what we're going to do. And then you do it and then you can move on and you're not always wishing you were doing something else, right? When we're mothering and then we think we should be working our business or we're working our business thinking we should be mothering and it's like we're always not good enough for any of it. But through this program, you learned when I'm working my business, I can be a good business owner. And when I'm with my son, I can be a great mom and I can be where I am and know that everything's going to be fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add before we end today?
No, I don't think so. I just want to thank you for putting this program together because and I'm just thankful to my friend who was like, you need to do this.
Loving kick in the right direction.
Yeah. And I just want to thank you. It really made a difference in my life.
I'm so glad to hear that. Well, thank you, Tami, for saying yes, because a lot of people think about doing it, or a lot of people think about shifting and changing, but a lot of people stay stuck and they don't actually make the step that they need to take. Because you guys, if it were easy, you would already be there. And so you need a loving kick in the right direction. You need a space to ask those powerful, like transformational questions and the space to answer. It's not just a YouTube video that you could find, you know what I mean? Like this is not just an e-course. This is a community and this is transformation because you're talking through it yourself. And that's where the shifts start to happen.
The community is, I think that makes a huge difference.
Right. I mean, I've had people not be able to show up on Tuesdays and do the e-course and they still find success. But like the community is like the exclamation point.
Yeah.
Because your transformation happens through your processing and through your talking and you sharing about your own life and getting feedback from others.
Yep. And just the support system.
Yeah.
Hearing other people say, like, I understand, or this is what I go through. And it's just huge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, and like you said, there's some days where we're like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. But guess what? We leave filled.
Mm-hmm.
We leave the meeting filled. And like I call it a soul fill every Tuesday because that's just what it feels like to me. Like we're leaving better than we came.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tami. Again, if you guys are interested in learning more about 90-day U-turn, our next round doesn't start until January, but we will start. We will be starting to put people on the wait list. So if you're interested in that, put my turn in the comments below, and you'll be the first to know for the January cohort, Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. We'd love to have you. Thank you again, Tami. Have an amazing night, you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, Denise.